Chapter 3 Landfall. The short ride aboard the garden transport had passed without incident. Considering his entourage, Squall wouldn't have had it any other way. They'd sat in silence within the cold, tight confines of the armored infantry truck, packed in with 3 other squads. The windowless, stainless steel interior provided no view of the outside world. It made no difference to him. He'd traveled the motorway to Balam many times before. On arrival, they would transfer the garden sea vessels docked at the pier. From there, he knew not where they would be bound, nor which battlefield he would christen as his first. Balam Garden had been established on a small island nation. The rationale for the location was twofold, providing an insulated, focused environment for students to thrive in, while reflecting Seed's mercenary nature and not aligning with any major world power. Prior to its construction, the Alcod Plains and their neighboring forests had gone largely undisturbed by man. Only a single quaint port town resided by the water, settled long ago by a guild of fishermen. The transport eventually ground to a halt. The Seed closest to the rear door thrusted open, letting the midday sun stream in. The 4 squads and their supervisors all exited into the dock in an orderly fashion. As he stepped out of the vehicle, Squall turned his head to survey his surroundings. The town of Balam. It was a peaceful seaside municipality, its stout brick and sandstone homes on the hill above overlooking the beach. Since its founding, tales of the delectable fish native to the region had spread far and wide. Paired with its seasonally tropical allure, it had become a popular tourist destination, in turn leading to the construction of an underwater transcontinental railway to Galbadia. Though the garden and the local government operated independently of one another, an agreement had been brokered for Seed's naval fleet to remain docked within the town limits. Row after row of sleek blue assault boats floated beside the waterfront just ahead. Each sported a machine gun turret to the fore and a domed cockpit to the aft. All were manned by 1 helmeted silhouette apiece. The vessels were designed for speed and nimbleness, capable of exceeding 200 miles per hour. Squall still vividly recalled his first time aboard one 2 years earlier. He'd been grateful ever since that he wasn't prone to seasickness.
Man, this is the real deal, huh?
Zell said to no one in particular. All around, dozens of cadets and Seeds hustled up and down the pier to their designated vessels.
Better not piss your pants,
Cypher chuckled.
You talking to me?
Knock it off, you two.
Quistis reprimanded them.
When Headmaster Sid said let the exam begin, he meant it started at that very moment. Don't think just because we haven't reached the battlefield yet that you're not being evaluated right now.
Squall had suspected as much, but thought nothing of it. Remaining mum came effortlessly to him.
Let's get aboard. It's 2 squads to a vessel. We'll be sharing ours with Squad 20.
She led the way to one particular assault boat down at the dock. Squall followed her up the stairwell and ducked his head through the starboard side hatch. The interior was furnished with 8 arm-rested seats on either side of a rectangular commode. A powered-on monitor hung on the stern side of the cabin. At the bow stood a ladder leading up to the turret. The only other exit at the front opened to the infantry deployment bay. The runs to the cockpit had been bolted into the ship's exterior. The members of Squad 20 sat across from them. Squall's eyes bulged as he looked them over. While the 3 young cadets were nobody of consequence, their accompanying Seed's reputation preceded her. For whatever celebrity status Quistis had accrued, it could never hold a candle to her. 23-year-old Shu Adrastia was the undisputed top of the pecking order. It had been 2 years since her ascension to the rank of Commandant, head officer of Seed, and direct advisor to the headmaster himself. Her qualifications were as diverse as they were impressive. A staunch tactician, expert short sword specialist, and the only member of Seed on record to wield a guardian force of the rare holy element. Her sharp, focused features momentarily softened as she rose from her seat.
Good to see you, Quistis. I've been looking forward to seeing your first pupils in action.
Of course. I'm sure they'll perform well.
That's what I will be expecting. The administration as well.
Looks like we're not the only ones being evaluated today. Shu abruptly turned to Cypher as he strolled in. Her eyes re-narrowed, boring holes through his.
We're not going to have any more mishaps this time around, are we, Cypher?
Commandant, whatever could you mean? I only ever act as necessary to ensure the operation's success.
I'll be the judge of that. Squad 20, 10 hut.
The 3 cadets leapt out of their seats to stand at attention.
Ernrit, Dragoon, first class,
said the first. He carried a retractable steel-plated javelin strapped to his back.
Randall Eversberg, machine gunner, second class,
spoke the second. His weapon hung from a shoulder sling, forming an X across his chest with his ammunition bandolier.
Nita Emmerich, vehicle specialist and medic, first class.
The last introduced himself. He bore no obvious arms besides a standard pistol. Squall took the hint and saluted in return.
Squall Lionheart, gunblade specialist, first class.
Zell Dinched, tech specialist and CQC, first class.
Cypher Almasy, the real gunblade specialist, first class.
They'd barely finished their introductions when the vessel jerked beneath their feet. Squall quickly took a seat with the other 5 cadets and Quistis. Shu remained standing. She maintained her balance even as the ship picked up speed. She ambled her way around the commode to the monitor, plucking a small remote control from her breast pocket. As she clicked it, a digital rendering of the world map flashed on the screen. It displayed their position to the southwest of Balam and the upward arcing trajectory they would take to their destination. They were en route to the upper easternmost shore of the neighboring Galbadian continent. Even without a label to indicate it, Squall could tell exactly where they were heading.
I will now explain the situation and mission objective,
Shu announced.
Our client for this mission is the Dalit Dukedom Parliament. 72 hours ago, the city came under attack by Galbadia's naval fleet. The casualty figures are reportedly staggering. 49 hours into the battle, the Dalit infantry were forced to abandon their position in the inner city and retreated into the western Hasbury Mountain range. The Parliament has been evacuated, along with most of the surviving civilians. They are currently en route to an extraction point further along the coast. As of our last contact, the Galbadia forces have begun advancing into the mountains to mop up the remaining troops. This will give us an opening for our pincer attack. While Galbadia continues their advance, we will make our landing at Lapin Beach and eliminate the forces still in the city. Once it has been liberated, you will be on standby until further notice. The Seed operatives will intercept any enemy forces attempting to make their way back into the city. Any questions?
Sounds like we're using the Dalit soldiers as bait,
Zell said.
That's what they get for turning tail as soon as things got rough,
Cypher smarmed.
So what are we supposed to do?
Squad 19 will be charged with securing Aurora Square to the west end of the city. Squad 20, your objective is to find the communication cable lines the Galbadians are using and shut them down.
Wow, sounds important.
It sounds boring,
Cypher scoffed, correcting Zell.
Figures. We get the grunt work while Seeds have all the fun up in the mountains.
The other first-class cadet, Nita, looked over at Cypher with a concerned look.
I don't see what's so fun about it. We might not be on the front lines, but that doesn't mean our own jobs aren't important. Don't brush it off just because it's not what you wanted.
Speak for yourself, kid. And never tell me what to do.
Squall winced. Though he understood little of the grading scale used for the exam, Cypher scores must have already dipped to precarious levels.
Break it up, you two,
Shu snapped.
Like it or not, these are your assignments. Deal with it. Also, it hardly needs to be said, but the withdrawal order takes priority. A designated messenger from another squad in your region will arrive to tell you when, and it will be in Dalit Standard Time, not Balam. Make sure you set your watches back. We have about 4 hours until we arrive. We anticipate combat as soon as we make landfall, so make your preparations now. That is all.
The Commandant maneuvered through the aisle to the fore of the cabin. She exited through the door to the bow, leaving the remaining 7 to their own devices.
Well, this is it. It might be an exam in name, but don't forget this is a real battle. Focus will be paramount to make it through. So, if any of you have something you need to get off your chests, now's the time.
No one spoke. All was silent, save for the engine's omnipresent humming. Squall was ready. Should he fall in battle this day, it would be deserved for not having trained hard enough. He had no worldly attachments, no family to mourn his passing, and no regrets to hold him back. His mind was perfectly set in order, and then he remembered.
Quist, instructor, he stumbled. When I came to this morning, there was a girl in the infirmary, wearing a shawl around her. She left right before you came in. Do you know who she was?
Quistis brought her hand up to her chin and furrowed her eyebrows.
I don't think there was anyone else there this morning. Or at least I didn't see anyone. Why? Is there something wrong?
Squall bowed his head. Perhaps it had been a figment of his imagination after all. He'd been plenty disoriented upon awakening. But then, Dr. Katawaki had mentioned letting his friend in to see him. Squall had no friends as far as he was aware. In any case, it wasn't worth getting hung up on, least of all with a battle ahead.
No, it's nothing.
This is perfect.
Cypher cackled.
I've got the chicken wuss and a guy who just hit puberty in my squad.
Squall kept his head down. There was no need for him to see the looks on the others' faces. He could perfectly picture Zell's fury, Quistis' disappointment, and the confusion or even amusement shared between Squad 20. What he couldn't imagine was there being another more dysfunctional squad registered for the exam.
Anyway, it's a little cramped in here, and I'd say we need a lookout up top. Squall, climb up to the turret and keep watch.
He finally glanced up at his rival's sneering, scarred face.
The Commandant said we won't be there for 4 hours. Why do we need a lookout right now?
This is an order from your captain, Squall. Now do as you're told.
Squall's gaze flitted from his squad leader to Zell, Quistis, the accompanying group, and back. They all knew it was blatant hazing as well as he did. Even so, he couldn't afford to show disobedience from the outset. He would have to play by the rules to receive a passing evaluation.
Understood.
He rose to his feet and navigated around Zell's legs toward the front. He was stopped in his tracks as Cypher kicked his foot up in the commode, blocking his path.
Is that how you address your superior, soldier?
Understood, sir.
He rephrased through gritted teeth.
Now that's more like it. Know your place, scrub.
This is going to be the longest exam of my life.
The Holy Dalit Empire had risen more than 4,000 years ago. Settled by a group of Centran expatriates, it had blossomed from humble beginnings into a major world power to rival their homeland. The new regime conquered the full lay of the Western continent, ushering its people together under one flag. Following a period of political strife and separatist revolt, however, the nation eventually fragmented. A long civil war between smaller nation-states ensued, and so, the once unified empire became a land divided, the remaining loyalist territory reduced to a mere dukedom. 21 years before the present day, the state of Galbadia granted President Vincere Delling an indefinite term extension. On the cusp of a long and bloody war with the eastern world power of Estar, he decreed the scattered territories be reunited under a single banner, by force if necessary. Galbadia's conquest swept across the land, swallowing nearly all of the continent. The last remnant of Dalit's legacy, the seaside former capital city which still bore its name, was now all that remained. Its geographical location was the factor that had allowed it to hold out for so long. The Hasbury Mountains to the west blocked off its connection to the rest of the continent. Likewise, the ongoing wireless communications interference made the use of aircraft impractical, leaving the sea as the only feasible manner by which to deploy an army. A few hours had passed before Squall's restlessness set in. He watched as the horizon transformed from a blue haze to a glowing wash of orange over the endless sea. The moon, blue-tainted and more vibrant than ever, loomed hauntingly as it climbed higher. When he turned back toward the bow, plumes of smoke unfurled above a vast landmass in the distance. The city rapidly came into view as they approached, as did the enemy ships left on the shore. Their method of engagement was clear, a full frontal rush on the beach and into the city proper. They'd send the Galbadian infantry scrambling to regroup, opening the way for their counteroffensive. Squall manned the turret, scanning the coast through the holographic windshield. Seconds passed as minutes. Adrenaline fired through his veins. His first true battle had arrived. He took aim. As the first shots from the surrounding assault boats roared across the waves, he pulled the triggers. The shaking and rattling were tremendous and might have proven too much for a less experienced soldier. It was no issue for Squall. His gunblade's trigger function necessitated he compensate for recoil for each strike. The anti-artillery rounds sheared clean through the hulls of the beached vessels. Several burst into smoldering pyres of flame and shrapnel, brilliant under the sinking afternoon sun. Dozens of helmeted soldiers dispersed across the ridge overlooking the beach. Most were gunned down just as quickly by the French ships. Squall's boat slowed as it drew near, until the underside finally hit solid ground. He grabbed hold of the circular safety railing to steady himself as it slid to a stop. A loud mechanical hiss sounded from the front. He peered over to see the deployment bay doors open. The members and advisors of Squads 19 and 20 spilled out into the sand, just as dozens of others already had, up and down the shore. Firearms and spellcraft blazed as they charged up the incline to the city. Other cadets remained on their turrets, mowing down soldier after soldier on the ridge to clear the way. Squall had never relished the thought of taking human lives in the line of duty. Nevertheless, it was inevitable. The Galbadians would offer him no such mercy in return.
Come on, Squall! Let's get a move on!
Zell called to him. He hoisted himself over the railing and slid down the ship's hull. He hit the sand with a thud beside Cypher. Quistis and Zell stood opposite. Commandant Shu and her squad were already long gone.
We're to secure the Aurora Square at once.
Quistis shouted over the roar of gunfire.
I'll provide support until we arrive, but I'm leaving the brunt of the fighting up to you three. This is your chance to show what you're made of.
Best news I've heard all day.
Cypher boasted. He drew his gunblade from his coat, bringing it to a halt pointed upward in front of his face. Cypher's ebony Hyperion gunblade was of a lighter, sleeker design than Squall's revolver variant. Its hilt resembled a semi-automatic pistol, utilizing standard ammunition cartridges for reloading. Its compact design sacrificed striking power for speed and ease of use. As opposed to Squall's hefty blade, Cypher had no difficulty wielding his weapon with one hand.
Forward!
Squall, Zell, and Quistis hurried after him, the Seed having finally drawn her signature metallic whip. Her prowess with the weapon bordered on legend among the student body. Squall had witnessed it firsthand since she'd become his instructor. He could attest it was indeed a beautiful display of ferocity and grace intertwined. They ascended the nearby stone stairway carved into the incline. It rose to meet a grand brick archway leading down a desecrated stretch of road. Small craters peppered the cobbled pavement. Bodies of soldiers and citizens littered the street sides. Acrid dust and smog wafted through the air, overpowering the beach's salty aroma. The constant clatter of gunfire and explosions came from every direction, as cadets and soldiers exchanged fire from behind ruined buildings and vehicles. Squall and his entourage dipped behind a falling column for cover. He reached down to the sphere clipped to his belt and activated it. The two halves parted ever so slightly to allow the power within free rein. He focused his mind, willing the energy to materialize around his body. A translucent protective barrier flashed before him, fading from sight just as quickly. He was ready. He drew his gunblade as he rounded the debris, stepping to the line of fire. He didn't slow even as the bullets came whizzing toward him. His magical barrier shimmered back into being as they harmlessly pinged off. He was untouchable. Referring to it as a shield was technically inaccurate. It was a veil of energy with no corporeal presence. The more he channeled into it, the greater the volume of physical matter it could repel. To deflect something the size of a bullet required only a small amount. Velocity and kinetic energy did not apply. On the flip side, it worked both ways. Were a cadet rifleman to conjure one, it would prevent their own bullets from escaping its radius. It was for this very reason most Seeds trained with close-range weapons, such as swords or staves, arms of sufficient mass to pass through the veil. Summoning a reflective barrier to guard against spellcraft worked much the same way. Though it served no practical application in the field, theirs was a power not shared by any other army in the world. He reached the enemy line in seconds and brought his gunblade down on the nearest soldier with a well-timed pull of the trigger. The armored grunt toppled over, nearly cleaved in two. It was done. He'd achieved his first confirmed kill. He immediately turned his attention to the next, before any emotional response could take root. There would be ample time to reflect on his actions once the battle had been won. His two squad mates fell in after him. Beyond his own protective barrier, Zell's fists were encased in conjured stone gauntlets. With each thundering blow, another soldier's body flew across the expanse. Cypher sliced his way forward in rapid succession, deftly maneuvering between each new adversary. He stayed on the move, expertly evading whatever gunfire came his way. He deliberately chosen not to erect his own barrier. Any other cadet would have deemed it suicidal, yet Cypher's fighting prowess made the handicap seem non-existent. The battle raged on in the company of several additional squads. Spellcraft of nearly every element soared through the air. Brick and mortar rained down from the buildings on either side of the road with each impact. The dust clouding the battlefield gradually thickened, turning into a black smog. Absorbed in the slaughter as he was, it wasn't until the Galbadian infantry pulled back that Squall understood. He squinted through the intensifying haze. A cluster of smoke grenades lay scattered about the street. The darkness condensed by the second. Before long, he could barely make out his own hand in front of his face. It was quickly blown away by a powerful gust of wind from behind. Squall stumbled as he thrust his gunblade into a crevice in the ground. He gripped it tightly to steady his footing until the gale died down.
"We've got him on the run!"
Someone yelled. A resounding cheer answered him.
"Keep pushing forward!"
Another shouted. Several fellow squads heeded the call, racing up the street. Others scurried down the branching alleyways to either side.
Hi, all you Galbadian cowards!
Cypher roared as he charged ahead.
Come out and show your faces! Don't leave me hanging now!
What an idiot.
Zell quipped.
At least he's got the fighting spirit.
Quistis chimed in from behind.
Let's keep moving. The Aurora Square shouldn't be too much further ahead.
The three tailed their brash squad captain through the maze of winding, demolished streets, sidestepping and surmounting all manner of wreckage and bodies in their path. An increasing number of green-clad Dalit soldiers lay awkwardly among the overturned cars and street lamps. It must have been a grueling battle fought over the last several days. The city's tragic fate was not lost on Squall, nor the grief of the surviving townspeople. Nevertheless, his duty to defend them extended only so far as the contract deigned. It was not his place to question the mission's validity or moral righteousness. Had Galbadia been the faction to higher seed, he would have followed his orders all the same. A mercenary took no sides, save for the one which provided him payment. Their overeager captain came back into view at last. He rested with his back propped up against the side of another arched entryway. Squall hugged the wall as he approached, peering ahead into the circular plaza on the other side. A fountain sculpted in the image of a woman stood in the center. A platoon of 4 troopers stood guard by its side, their attention presently drawn to the hotel and restaurant on the perimeter's opposite end.
Allow me.
Zell volunteered, taking the initiative. He drew back his right arm and slammed his studded knuckles into the ground. A miniature fault line formed from the spot he'd struck. The crevice sank deeper into the pavement, tearing the terrain asunder as it sped toward the soldiers. Their heads swiveled at the approaching rumble. They cried out as it roared beneath their feet. A sudden upsurge of energy erupted from the tremor, sending them airborne. They soared through the air, plummeting back down atop the overturned tables and chairs outside the abandoned restaurant.
Leave some for the rest of us, why don't you?
Cypher huffed.
Excellent control of the energy, Zell. I was worried you were going to destroy the fountain for a moment. That took skill.
Aw, it's nothing, Instructor.
Squall paid them no mind. He raced into the plaza, bolting for the downed soldiers. All 4 appeared to be unconscious, though still breathing. While the battle was far from over, gunfire and explosions continued to echo from afar. His squad had secured their objective with relative ease.
Guess I'll do the honors,
Cypher announced. He raised his gunblade above the nearest soldier's head. Squall thrust his own forward to block the strike mid-swing. The familiar clash of steel rang out as the 2 swords met.
Hold it. We might be able to get information out of them when they wake up. Maybe get a better picture of their battle plan.
I thought I told you to know your place,
Cypher snarled. He continued putting weight on his gunblade, pushing Squalls down.
And I should think any good captain would consider what his squadmates have to say.
The 2 turned their attention to Quistis. She stared Cypher down, her brow furrowed with disapproval, just as when they'd been children.
I'm not going to tell you how to lead your team, but know this attitude of yours isn't going to reflect well on your final grade.
The tension mounted as Squall continued to fight back against the Hyperion's pressure. Finally, Cypher lifted the blade with a grunt.
Ugh. Tie them up.
Squall sheathed his blade and assisted Zell as commanded. They grouped the unconscious soldiers together, with their backs pressed against one another in a circle. Squall double-checked to make sure no weapons were unaccounted for, while Zell procured a cable from his supply pouch. They then bound the four together tightly.
Well, this is where I leave you three.
Quistis told them.
I'm off to join the rest of the seed detachment in the mountains. You're on standby here until the withdrawal orders come.
Yes, ma'am.
Zell saluted. Squall mimicked him. Cypher made no effort to stand on formality. He returned his gunblade to his coat as their instructor took off down the road adjoining the street.
Stand by.
He moaned, kicking the gravel produced by the tremor aside.
How boring.
More than an hour had passed since Squad 19 secured the Aurora Square. The surrounding buildings cast looming shadows in the afternoon sun. Cypher sat quietly on the edge of the trickling fountain. Zell, seemingly desperate for something to keep himself occupied, had used his GF to conjure a set of small earthen balls. He juggled them beside the restaurant, where the four Galbadian soldiers remained tied up. None had awoken thus far, nor had there been any sign of inbound reinforcements. Squall stood with his back against the archway they'd entered through, polishing his gunblade. All was silent, save for the occasional burst of gunfire from the mountains. The battle seemed to be winding down in less time than he expected. It almost disappointed him on some level. He'd spent years training for this very day, only for the confrontation to draw to a standstill so abruptly. His thoughts were undeniably petty. Despite his better judgment, however, he couldn't shake the feeling in his gut.
At least I should pass without any issues.
Damn it!
Squall looked at Zell. The juggling balls, both in his hands and midair, simultaneously crumbled, dissipating into the ether with a shimmer.
I can never sustain him for more than a couple minutes.
You shouldn't be using it as a toy, Squall chastised him.
You shouldn't be using it at all,
Cypher corrected.
Not if you have any self-respect. A real man relies on his own strength.
Unless he fancies himself a pickpocket, Squall shot back. He irritably slid his gunblade back into its sheath with a loud metallic clink.
You're still hung up on that. That was just a lesson you needed to learn. You'll thank me for it when the time comes.
I don't get you, Cypher. You went through certification to get one, and you don't use it? That makes no sense to me.
It makes perfect sense, if you ever stop to think about it.
Cypher reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew his own silver sphere. It gleamed in the sunlight as he held it outstretched to them. Guardian forces were a powerful energy source contained within spheres of special alloy casing. The switches on the top and bottom, once depressed, served to part it by half an inch, allowing a safe amount of energy to seep out and intermingle with any living being in its immediate area. With proper mental and physiological training, one could harness it to perform what could only be described as magic of various elements and styles. Advanced wielders could even materialize it as a fully functioning apparition to command in battle. The focus and stamina required for a summoning usually resulted in extreme exhaustion, to speak nothing of the devastation that could be wrought by the creature. As such, it was only to be performed in the most dire of circumstances. The energy's true nature was a staunchly kept secret, as was the manufacturing process of the spheres. Each bore the black and white seed insignia on its shell, a symbol of Balamgarden's monopoly over the technology. Cadets were first eligible to take the certification test at 14. As with the field exam, Balam was the only one of the 3 schools to offer training with GFs. This left transfer students from Galbadia and Trebia Gardens at a disadvantage from the outset. Although each was given their own upon enrollment, learning how to call upon its power took considerable time and effort. Hence, Squall's incredulity at the ditzy girl from Trebia who signed up for the exam already. Only one as experienced as Cypher could afford to be so reckless. His eyes darted between Squall and Zell before offering an explanation.
These things might give you all the power you could ever want, but at the end of the day, it's not yours. It's a power we've been given the privilege of wielding and told to depend on like a crutch to fight our battles for us. And like any privilege, it can be taken away at any time if the higher-ups want to put the screws to you. And what are you left with then?
He let the question hang in the air for several uncomfortable moments. He slipped the sphere back into his pocket.
Relying on charity to fight your battles will only get you so far, especially when that power can be revoked just as easily. The only thing in this world you can depend on is your own skill as a fighter. That's something no one can take away from you.
He shifted his gaze back to Squall. Those piercing blue eyes seemed to probe the depths of his soul.
You of all people should understand that. If being able to stand on your own 2 feet is what you really want.
Squall had no response. He clutched at the sphere clipped to his belt in frustration. He never felt shame in relying on its power. It was just another weapon in his arsenal, much like his gunblade.
Fine, have it your way.
Zell threw up his arms.
Still, seems like a real waste to me. It's like we've all got the sorceress power right at our fingertips.
You do know those are just old legends, Squall scoffed. He had little patience to entertain fairy tales in his learned age.
Yeah, maybe, but... I mean, these things are made in Estar, right? And you know how that place got its reputation.
Right. And if Odine Industries had just started producing these back then, who's to say she couldn't have gotten her hands on the first one ever made? She was a noble, you know. She would have had the right connections. It's the perfect con, and the perfect way to strike fear into the superstitious people around the world. Zell opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He shrunk back just as abruptly. It's what makes sense. I don't have a clue how these things work, but as far as legends go, I'm positive they're just that.
Will you two shut it already?
Cypher growled. He leapt to his feet and thrust his gunblade to the sky in agitation.
I'm so sick of waiting around here. Where the hell is the action?
A wary moan answered his roar. Squall spun his head in its direction. By Zell's side, one of the 4 bound soldiers had been roused from his slumber. His head slowly bobbed as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings. Squall shot from the wall, just a Cypher from the fountain. Zell crouched down and gripped the soldier's helmet, holding his head in place for interrogation. Keep quiet and do as we say, Squall ordered.
What he said. Screaming won't do you any good. No one's coming to save you.
The soldier stayed silent. His helmet's silver-plated visor kept his eyes hidden, leaving only his mouth and the lower half of his nose visible. Of course no one's coming, he said in a hoarse voice. They've got more important things to take care of anyway.
Oh, really? Like what?
Cypher asked, disengaging the safety on his gunblade.
Go on. Your secret's safe with us. I promise.
Squall knelt down beside the captive soldier, staring him directly where his eyes would be. Tell us, and I suggest you be quick about it. He's got a shorter fuse than I do. Taking control of the city was never the real objective. Just a means to push through and secure the tower.
You mean the old communications tower up in the mountains?
Yep, that's the one. We were assigned to hold the town while the Major and his men made their way up.
Why go to so much trouble for outdated tech?
Squall wondered the same. Radio wave broadcasts hadn't been in use for 17 years. Hell if I know. But supposedly those orders came down from Delling himself. He wants the tower up and running ASAP. That's all I've got, I swear.
Your candor is appreciated,
Cypher sneered.
And for that, you deserve a nice long rest.
Zell barely managed to pull his hand away before he brought his elbow down on the soldier's head. A gag escaped his mouth as his neck violently jerked down. He'd been lucky it hadn't snapped from the sudden blow.
Do you think he was telling the truth?
Zell pondered. It would explain why there haven't been any reinforcements, Squall said. It doesn't make any sense why they'd be after that tower, though.
Who cares?
Cypher barked.
We've got a new objective. Let's move out.
Are you nuts?
Zell reeled.
Instructor Trape told us to stay here and protect the square. Do you want to fail?
You heard him. No one's coming. We're wasting our time here when we could be up there putting a stop to the real mission. Besides, I've been getting restless just sitting around. Gotta keep my skills sharpened.
But...
He paused, instead turning his anxious gaze to Squall.
Come on, back me up here.
Squall cast his eyes down. Abandoning their post would constitute a breach of conduct, and no doubt earn him a failing mark regardless of his performance thus far. It was completely irresponsible. And yet, having learned the enemy's objective and failing to act on it seemed even more so. Cypher had a point, much as he hated to admit it. They could probably do more service to the mission in disobedience. Furthermore, he too had become restless. I stand by the captain's decision. Cypher's head shot up. He crossed over to him and put a hand on his shoulder, shaking him playfully.
Oh, I see. You're looking to wreak some havoc too, aren't you?
Squall swatted his hand away, shooting him the most intimidating scowl he could muster.
You have a point. And besides, it's a good opportunity to test my skills. Thanks to you, I feel like I can take on anyone, even if they do fight dirty.
Their silent stare-down dragged on for what seemed like ages. Neither broke eye contact until the group's self-appointed voice of reason stepped between them.
All right, cool it, guys. You're forgetting this is an exam, and an important one. I'm telling you, we need to stick to orders.
Then you stay here and babysit.
Cypher roared.
To the summit!
He turned with a whip of his gray coat. Squall followed, the opportunity he trained half his life for, shrinking into the distance behind him with each step.
I guess I'll just have to try again next year.
You guys can't be serious. Will you two just... Damn it, wait for me!